All right, so are you ready to dive in? Today we're going deep on UFOs. And, it's really gone from like these quiet whispers to like full-on congressional hearings.
Yeah, it is amazing to see this topic go from the edges of conspiracy theories to serious scientists and officials taking a look.
Yeah, for real. And, this National Geographic video we've got, it goes
Yeah.
right into it and starts with Ryan Graves, this Navy pilot who was stationed on the USS Theodore Roosevelt back in 2015.
Oh, yeah.
He and his whole squadron started seeing these weird radar contacts right off the coast of Virginia Beach.
Yeah, and the things they're saying are really strange. They describe it as like a dark cube, but inside a clear sphere.
Yeah.
Like no wings, no cockpit, nothing like that, no
Yeah.
exhaust or anything. But it's moving so fast and doing these crazy maneuvers that our planes would look like they're just stopped.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a sci-fi movie, right?
It really does.
But these were like, top trained pilots, and
Yeah.
they were seeing this stuff almost every day.
Right.
And the video says this wasn't just like a one-time thing. Like, pilots across the Navy were reporting similar encounters for years.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, why didn't we hear about this sooner?
Yeah, right.
The video talks about how there's a stigma around UFOs where people were afraid to say anything because they thought people would make fun of them or hurt their careers.
Right?
So everyone just kept quiet.
Yeah, I get that, right? Imagine you're like this awesome pilot, you see something totally crazy. Who's going to believe you?
Exactly.
So it makes sense why they might not say anything. But think about it, right? Like, what if these things are real and dangerous? Ignoring them could be a big mistake.
Oh, totally. And in the past, the government hasn't been very open about this stuff either. Remember Project Blue Book?
Yeah.
The official line was like, oh, those UFOs, those are just weather, or people seeing things wrong.
Right, right.
But saying that just made those conspiracy theories even worse, especially about Area 51 and the whole Roswell thing.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of secrets, Area 51 is like the king of UFO conspiracies. Yeah. Like alien autopsies, crashed spaceships, tech they took from the aliens. The stories are wild.
They are.
But the video makes a good point, right? Like, not being open about things just creates these crazy theories.
Yeah, it made people really not trust the government about UFOs, and it wasn't until recently with people like Senator Harry Reid pushing for investigations that things started to change.
Yeah, Reid was really pushing for it. He got them to fund a whole program at the Pentagon just to look into UFOs.
Yeah.
He really wanted them to be open about it. And then, boom, that big New York Times article comes out in 2017 and tells everyone about this secret program. It was everywhere in the news.
And that article wasn't just some cool stories, right? It made the government admit that they were looking into UFOs, which they had said they weren't doing for years.
Exactly, exactly.
So them going from saying no to, yeah, was a huge deal for people who wanted to know about this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And that opened the door for Congress to finally step in. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, she's on like the big military and intelligence committees, and she picked up where Harry Reid left off.
Yeah, she did.
She was shocked that nobody was talking about this stuff, and she was determined to bring it out in the open.
Well, she was really important. She pushed really hard to get them to be more open, do better investigations, and finally create a whole office just for studying UFOs.
Right.
It wasn't just about people being curious. It was about, national security and keeping our military people safe.
Right. And she even got people from both parties to support it, which is like a miracle these days, right?
It really is.
It just shows how seriously everyone was taking this.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, the Pentagon releases this big report, and out of 144 UFO incidents they looked at them, they could only explain one of them.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
It's like they finally said, okay, maybe we don't know everything.
Right. That report was a huge deal. It was official. The government admitted there were things in our skies they just couldn't explain.
Yeah. And it wasn't just some blurry pictures or stories, They had data from sensors, radar tracks, lots of people seeing the same thing. It all added up. But that report, even though it was big, was really just the beginning.
Yeah.
Gillibrand went even further and got something added into the National Defense Authorization Act, that big bill.
Right.
This thing created a whole office just for looking into UFOs, even analyzing stuff that might have crashed.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We're talking about real evidence, something that could change everything we think we know.
Right.
Up until now, it's been mostly sightings and sensor data, which can be interpreted in different ways. But if they have actual stuff to study, it's a whole new ballgame.
Exactly. It takes us from guessing to actual science.
Right.
And the video talks about some really cool people like Gary Nolan. He's a geneticist and professor at Stanford who's been studying UFO materials for years.
I know, right?
Quietly, though.
Yeah, he shows how that stigma around UFO research is fading. You have this world-famous scientist risking his whole reputation to look into this. That says a lot.
Right, and he's not alone. He works with Jacques Vallée, this computer scientist and astronomer who's been a big name in UFO research forever.
Oh, yeah.
They've been focusing on cases where people say they found stuff after seeing UFOs, and one case really sticks out, the 1957 Ubatuba incident in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this one is really interesting because they actually took this evidence to a lab and studied it.
Right.
So this fisherman sees this glowing thing explode over the ocean, and afterward they find these weird magnesium pieces on the beach.
Interesting.
And get this, when Gary Nolan looked at these pieces, he found something amazing.
What's that?
The magnesium isotopes were arranged in a way that made him think someone made them, engineered them.
Hmm.
It's like finding a piece of metal that's been perfectly machined, but with technology we don't even understand. Hold on. Isotope ratios.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist. Can you explain that in simple terms?
So isotopes, they're like different versions of an element. Think of it like this. They're all magnesium atoms, but some are a bit heavier than others. What Nolan found is that the amounts of these different magnesium isotopes in those pieces from Ubatuba weren't something you'd find naturally.
Yeah.
Like someone arranged the atoms in a way that doesn't happen on its own. It makes him think it might not be from Earth.
Wow, that's crazy. So we're talking about maybe alien tech.
It could be. It makes you wonder what we're really dealing with here.
It really does.
It definitely challenges what we think is possible, right? If this stuff really is from a UFO, it raises some big questions about how advanced this technology is. Are we talking about something from another planet, another dimension, or something we can't even imagine right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing to think about it, right? Like, we might have evidence of technology that's so advanced it just seems impossible to us.
It really makes you think about what we know, right? About science and the whole universe. It's a humbling thought. And those are the kind of questions that scientists like Nolan and Valley are trying to answer.
Right.
Their work is so important because it moves the conversation from just guessing and speculating to actual scientific research.
Exactly.
It's about using the scientific method on something that's been like a mystery for so long.
Right, we're finally taking UFOs seriously.
Yeah.
But to really figure this out, we need everyone to work together.
Exactly.
The video talks about how important it is for different agencies to cooperate.
Right.
Like if we're really going to understand UFOs, we need a central place for all the data, a system for collecting and analyzing it from all the different government agencies.
Right.
And everyone needs to be willing to share information and work together.
Exactly. You have the Air Force, the Navy, intelligence agencies. They all have their own data and ways of doing things. It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but the pieces are all over the place.
Yeah.
And nobody can talk to each other.
Talk about frustrating.
I know, right?
But the good news is that Gillibrand Amendment addresses that directly by making them cooperate and share information.
Oh, yeah, that was a big step in the right direction for sure.
It's all about breaking down those walls and getting the best people together to tackle this challenge.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a really big deal, the Galileo project led by Avi Loeb.
Oh, yeah, this is huge.
He's a Harvard astrophysicist.
Wow.
This isn't some group hiding in the shadows. This is mainstream science taking UFOs seriously.
Yeah, this is where the academic world really steps up.
Right.
Loeb's approach is really interesting. He's not saying it's aliens right away, but he's not ruling it out either.
Right.
He wants to use scientific methods and all this advanced technology to gather data and look at it objectively.
It's about looking for real proof, not just stories or blurry pictures.
Right.
They're using telescopes, high-resolution cameras, and fancy AI to scan the skies for anything out of the ordinary.
Wow.
It's like setting up a high-tech alarm system for UFOs.
I like that.
Right.
And one thing that makes this project different is that they're open about everything.
Exactly.
All their data is public. Anyone can see it, even other scientists.
It's about moving the UFO conversation away from conspiracies and into real data in science.
Exactly. And the video mentions this thing called the Ignatius Forum.
Oh, yeah.
It happened at the Washington National Cathedral back in 2021.
Interesting.
You had big names like Bill Nelson, the head of NASA, and Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence there.
Oh.
They sat down with scientists and even theologians to talk about what it would mean to find alien life.
And you know what's interesting?
What?
Haines actually said that some of these unexplained UFO things could be from aliens.
Wow.
That's a huge statement coming from her.
Yeah, it is.
It means that even the government is starting to think about the possibility of aliens.
Right. It's like the official story is finally catching up to what a lot of people have thought for years.
It is, and that change is partly because of scientists like Loeb and the Galileo Project. They're doing real research with data that's hard to ignore.
Totally. And then in 2022, we had that big congressional hearing on UFOs.
Oh yeah, the first one in over 50 years.
Right. And it wasn't some secret meeting. It was broadcast live for everyone to see.
I know, is a big deal.
You could feel the excitement leading up to it. It was everywhere in the news. Everyone was talking about it.
It really felt like a turning point.
Right. Made UFOs seem more real to everyone.
Exactly. The main focus was on national security and safety.
Right. Makes sense.
You've got these unidentified things flying around, military aircraft getting into restricted areas.
It's a real concern.
It is. And what the Pentagon officials said was amazing.
Yeah.
They basically admitted they had no idea what these things were, where they came from, or what they wanted to do.
Right. They said UFOs were real, but they couldn't explain them.
Can you imagine being there, listening to these high-ranking people saying, we're stumped?
It must have been wild.
Right. And kind of frustrating, too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about needing more transparency and better investigations, but they obviously didn't want to say too much in public.
Right. It felt like we were getting little peeks behind the curtain, but not the whole story.
Definitely. Maybe because of national security or not wanting to reveal our own technology. But that hearing did something really important.
What was that?
It made the UFO issue legitimate at the highest levels of government.
It did feel like they were being careful, right? Trying to say that UFOs are real, but not giving away too much.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that hearing really made people think.
Yeah.
It told everyone, the public and scientists, that this is something important we need to pay attention to.
It did, and it set the stage for more investigation and hopefully more openness in the future. They talked a lot about needing to hear from pilots and witnesses to give them protection so they can come forward without being afraid of what might happen.
That's so important.
Yeah.
We need to make it safe for people to share what they've seen without being laughed at or dismissed. There's probably so much information out there just in people's memories waiting to be shared.
Yeah, those firsthand accounts could be really helpful for figuring this whole thing out.
Yeah.
They could give us details about how these objects move, what they can do, maybe even hints about where they come from.
Exactly. And the video really emphasizes how important pirate testimony is.
Yeah.
Especially from those who've had these close encounters.
Right. They're trained to observe things, and they often have all that fancy sensor technology, so what they say matters a lot.
Yeah, they're like the astronauts of the UFO world.
I like that.
And speaking of important statements, the video ends with a pretty big one.
Oh, yeah.
It says, "The truth about UFOs is easy to summarize. The UFO phenomenon is real, and it may be the greatest scientific problem of all time."
Wow, that's a big statement.
It is, but when you think about what it all means, it's hard to disagree.
Yeah, if we're dealing with technology that breaks all our rules of physics, it could change everything.
Exactly.
How we understand the universe, humanity's place in it, all of it.
Yeah.
It could lead to breakthroughs in energy, how we travel, new materials. The possibilities are endless.
It's like we're about to enter this whole new era of scientific discovery.
It is.
One that could change our world in ways we can't even imagine.
It's humbling and exciting at the same time.
It is. We live in a time when we're pushing the limits of what we know further than ever before.
That's for sure.
And UFOs are right at the front of that exploration.
Yeah.
They make us question what we think we know.
Right.
Force us to be open-minded.
Yeah.
And remind us that the universe is full of surprises.
The video leaves us with a really cool thought. The knowledge we get from studying the universe is important for everyone and helps everyone.
Yeah, I like that.
It reminds us that science isn't just about equations and numbers. It's about understanding our world and where we fit in.
Right.
It's about understanding our place in the universe.
Exactly. So what does all this mean for you? Well, for starters, you're not in the dark about UFOs anymore.
We've gone from whispers to with the government saying, yeah, something weird is going on in our skies. And scientists are seriously trying to figure it out.
Those days of saying UFOs are just nonsense or conspiracy theories are over.
They are.
We're in a new time where being open-minded and using evidence is what matters.
Yeah.
Who knows what amazing things we might discover?
One thing's for sure, this story is just beginning.
It is.
And as we learn more, we'll be here to help you understand this fascinating and always changing mystery.
So keep looking up and keep your mind open. The truth is out there somewhere.
And that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.